Hello, this is saxophonist Antonio Parker, and this is A Conversation in Jazz, where we are promoting jazz through telling the stories. Our guest today is the legendary jazz trumpeter, educator, composer, and arranger, the one and only Mr. Jimmy Owens. We ask you to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so we can let you know when we are posting another video or going live. We also ask you to donate to our Cash App in order to support the channel and help us to produce future videos. Our Cash App is $ Jazzology 101. That's $ Jazzology 101. Enjoy the video. Hi, I'm saxophonist Antonio Parker, and this is A Conversation in Jazz. Our guest today is a legendary jazz trumpeter and flugelhornist. He is a 2012 NEA Jazz Master who has over 45 years of experience as a jazz trumpeter, composer, arranger, lecturer, and music education consultant. His experience covers a wide range of international musical achievement, which includes extensive work as a studio musician, soloist, band leader, and composer of orchestral compositions, movie scores, and ballets. He's one of the few trumpeters of his generation who played as a sideman with such extraordinary jazz leaders as Lionel Hampton, Hank Crawford, Charles Mingus, Max Roach, Duke Ellington, Billy Taylor, and the Thad Jones Mel Lewis Big Band, amongst others. Please welcome the one and only Mr. Jimmy Owens. Mr. Jimmy Owens, how you doing?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I want to correct one thing that you said.
Okay.
It's now going to be more than 60 years
Wow.
of experience.
Yeah, so, okay. Wow. Well, there we go. 60 years. Well, thanks for the correction. And let me just formally welcome you to Conversation in Jazz. And I'm honored to be able to have this opportunity to just chat it up, to learn. And, I think it's always good when the younger generation gets to talk to the elders while they're living. Because a lot of times they take a lot of information to the grave.
I know.
So it's an honor for me. And this is our first time meeting. I've heard about you because through my friend Munir Nasser. Mm-hmm. And I know you and his dad has worked together.
Right.
And Thad Wilson. I know you, and so I've heard about you. Then I did some research, and I'm like, wow. So I said, the resume is quite extensive, 60 years. But, we're not going to be able to cover everything, but we're going to try to touch on some things. The first thing I like to do is with my guests, is to see how they view themselves. Mm-hmm. So my first question is, who is Jimmy Owens?
Well, first off, I'm a father of 3 children. Mm-hmm. 2 by my first wife, and she had a daughter when we got married.
Okay.
And I raised the daughter from the age of 11.
Okay. Wow.
Beside being a father, I'm a jazz artist. Mm-hmm. And I feel very, very fortunate in being a jazz artist that has been around for a long time and have met and been able to speak to and learn from many of those people who are an integral part of my experience.
Wow. Beautiful.
I'm a composer. I'm a business person. I'm an educator. Also, I have been listed as being an activist.
Okay.
For the lives of jazz musicians and their business life, their health life. You know, I'm one of the founders of the Jazz Foundation of America and the Jazz Musician Emergency Fund that helps jazz and blues artists when they have problems.
Beautiful. Yeah, and we're gonna talk about some of that in here.
And right now, I am someone who is very happy to be here with you.
Oh, thank you.
Speaking with you.
Appreciate you. So what has when you reflect on like your experience, your extensive experience, do you pinch yourself sometimes? I mean, or how do you?
I did 25, 30 years ago. But as time has gone on, I've just added those things that I would pinch myself about as being part of my extensive life experience.
Got you. Beautiful. And where are you originally from?
New York City, born and raised in the Bronx.
Wow. Okay. So what was it like when you were coming up in New York? What was this? Now, did you come up in in segregation in that time? Or
Oh, sure. I was born in 1943.
Okay.
Okay? And when we talk about some of my performing experiences, I'll tell you some interesting things. But what was it like in growing up in the Bronx at that time? Well, I had a group of musicians who were my idols. Now, of course, at 13, 14, 15 years old, somebody who's 5 years older than you can be your idol.
Yes.
But now, if they were alive, they would be your friend
Yeah.
who is a little bit older than you.
How things change, right?
Yes.
Beautiful. So I want to, that time period, what was it like for musicians, like when you were coming up? Like you said you came up under segregation?
Well, not so much in New York, but the segregation was, I started to work with Hank Crawford.
Okay.
Hank Crawford, a great blues alto player.
Yeah.
We had a 9-piece band. We had a station wagon, and we pulled a U-Haul trailer
Wow.
with our instruments and clothes and everything. The station wagon had 3 people in the front, 3 people behind them, and then there was a seat that faced the back. And the 3 smallest guys had to be in that seat that faced the back. Okay? We stayed in places like Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And this is during 1963, 64.
Yeah.
So we were in the heart of
Yeah.
segregation.
Yeah.
It was 9 of us in the band. There were about 11 guns in that band.
Wow. So it was a little difference in the South versus being in the North.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And I mean, I remember the riots in 1964. I was working with Lionel Hampton at that time. I remember the police on the roofs in Harlem as we would drive uptown in Lionel Hampton's bus to pick him up
Wow.
to take him on a tour. And the tour was doing in the South.
Wow.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we were around this kind of
Did you
stuff.
get to see Malcolm X?
Oh, most definitely. I used to go to every lecture that I could that he was out on 125th Street.
Really? What
hearing
was it
him.
like seeing Malcolm? I mean, what?
Oh, it was great. I mean, and
Wow.
the stuff he was saying hit home.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I had been to the South. I was constantly going to the South, and I was constantly reading about,
Yeah.
let's see, what was it? The book was called 100 Years of Lynching, I think.
Wow.
We Charge Genocide was another book. So I was very aware of the kinds of history that had gone on for black people. And my father taught me a lot. You know, he was keeping me abreast of all of this. He was born and raised in New York, but, you know, he knew what was happening.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you think things are better for African Americans post segregation versus when segregation was happening?
Well, that's a difficult question because it's
Better in some
six
ways. Yeah.
on one hand and half a dozen on
Yeah,
the other.
gotcha, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there are certain things that happen during segregation that were very powerful. The fact that the white race would not allow black people to do certain things, so we came together and formed those entities to service our people. And that was very, very important.
Yeah. Now, and I'm like a kid, I got a bunch of questions. During that time, were the cats living all in the same vicinity? Like could you go around the corner, here's Monk,
Yes.
and Sonny Rollins was over here?
Yes. And matter of fact, my area in the Bronx, Elmo Hope lived a couple of blocks from me. We would see Thelonious Monk come up Prospect Avenue to go to see his sister or some relative that lived on Lyman Place. That's where Elmo Hope lived.
Wow.
This was all within 4 blocks of my house.
Yeah.
On my street, there were Bobby Capers, a great alto saxophonist who later went on to work with Mongo Santa Maria and others. So we all lived pretty close together.
Yeah.
You know, now these were all my idols. They were all 5 and 6 years older than me.
Wow. And do you think that because the proximity, everyone lived near each other, that have impacted how this music evolved and grew at the time?
Well, we learned from each other.
Yeah. They used to call it the University of the Streets.
That's right. You know? Yeah, we learned from each other, and those trumpet players were getting together and talking about the Lee Morgans, the Freddie Hubbards, as well as the Dizzy Gillespies and the Fats Navarros. And some of them, if they were hip enough, would be talking about the Louis Armstrongs.
Wow. Beautiful. Now, when you came up, did you come from a musical family?
No.
You were the only musician?
Yeah. My father worked at the post office, and my mother was at home for most of her life. And then when she started to work, which was about 1953 or 54, she worked in administrative positions in hospitals.
Gotcha. So was trumpet your first instrument?
I started when I was 10 years old. I'm a product of the New York City public school system.
Beautiful. Wow.
And I remember the day that this teacher came to our elementary school and had us take a music aptitude test. And I passed the music aptitude test and got put in the special music class at the junior high school 40.
Wow. So did you choose trumpet, or was it something chosen for you?
Well, it's a long story about the trumpet. On our block, we had a guy who was in the service. He had been in the Korean War, and he had a trumpet. And when he was stationed in Korea, somebody had stolen the trumpet. He tracked it down and managed to get it back. But when he got it back, the main tuning slide was gone. They had lost it. So, I mean, you just blow in the mouthpiece and it would go through the lead pipe, but it wouldn't connect to the rest of the instrument. So he took a rubber hose and connected that little round lead pipe, you know, and the horn sounded strange, you know. You know, it there was a dead vibration when it hit that rubber.
Yeah.
Well, when he had to go back to the war, he had all of the kids say what they wanted. Some wanted a barbell that he had. I wanted that trumpet.
Wow.
So I got the trumpet, and I learned how to play. And I got it because I was a Cub Scout, and I wanted to play taps.
Okay. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah.
So that's how the trumpet came about. The first day of school.
Yeah. Were you primarily self-taught, or did you learn in the school
Well, I
system?
learned in the school system.
Okay.
The first day of school, they asked, does anyone have an instrument? I raised my hand. Yeah. What do you have? I have a trumpet. He says, oh, bring your trumpet tomorrow. So when I brought my trumpet tomorrow, and he looked at it, he goes, what's this rubber hose?
Wow.
He said, oh, you take this to Bronin's music store and see if they can give you a tuning slide. You know. Well, they couldn't find a tuning slide for this. You know. So a couple of weeks, it was Christmas, and my father decided to buy me a trumpet.
Wow.
I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning.
Yeah. You know, I was 10 years old when I started as well. Wow. So did music come easy for you? Did you pick it up really?
Well, yeah, because when I grew up, as I was growing up, my father played the greatest music records. Like I say, he wasn't a musician or anything, but he played Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Billie Holiday, you know, all of this stuff. So I was hearing that. And one of the things that he played of Duke Ellington's was something called Trumpets No End. He told me about this as I grew up, because he used to pick me up when I was 3 or 4 years old and dance with me, and we had this huge mirror in our living room. And I used to love to see him dance with me to the music.
Wow. Beautiful.
So I had it in my ear. And when he died in 2004, and I was preparing the memorial, I started to see it was like he had the trumpet in his ear that he put into my ear.
Wow.
My favorite record was by Charlie Shavers.
Wow.
She's Funny That Way. And on the other side, Dizzy's Dilemma.
Wow.
Okay? I still have that 78.
Wow.
Okay?
Beautiful.
It was an interesting record. It was a picture record.
Yeah.
There was a picture on one side of the record and on both sides of the record.
Yeah, I was looking at an interview you did, I think in the early 2000s, and both your parents lived in their 90s, right?
Yeah. My
Wow,
mother
so
was
you got-
92 years old when she died. My father was 94 when he
Okay.
died.
Wow. So you got longevity in you.
Yeah.
Longevity has its place.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, did your mom also support your music?
No.
No?
She wanted me to be an electronic engineer. Okay? My brother-in-law was an engineer. And he was a pretty successful engineer from the standpoint of being in the presence of having to invent things. He invented something for some kind of plane, a F-16 rocket missile plane or something.
Really? Wow.
But because he worked for this firm, he didn't get any credit for that. And I'm sure also because the skin color was a lot
Yeah.
different than
Gotcha.
the people who were getting credit for stuff like that.
He didn't have the complexion or connection.
Right. That's it. That's it.
Wow. So at what point did you know that I'm going to pursue music? Now, I know you said your mom wasn't...
Yeah. When I took the test for the High School of Music and Art, and I got into the music and art, at which point I told my mother and father, I think I want to be a musician.
Wow.
I don't want to be an engineer anymore,
Yeah, wow.
you know.
What was it about music that compelled you?
Oh, I guess all of that foundation of listening to all those great records, you know, and people play,
Yeah.
and the excitement of it.
So you
And my two sisters at that time, they both got involved with the Puerto Rican culture and Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez. So they were dancing and listening to that music and whatnot, and it was exciting. And my sisters then started to listen to Miles Davis
wow.
and Chet Baker and Jerry Mulligan, you know. So I was hearing all of this music.
Did you like jazz when
Most definitely.
when you first heard it?
Yeah.
So yeah,
That was the only music that I heard.
yeah. I always try to like with the young generation. I'm an educator as well, and like I tell people when I first heard jazz, I was blown away as a kid. Nobody had to explain it to me.
Right.
Nobody had to say this is, you know. I mean, when I first heard Charlie Parker, I mean, I was as a kid. I'm like, and so I don't know how to
Yes.
get that in people. But did you have that kind of experience
Yes.
with it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So
same thing. And when I heard Miles Davis and Jackie McLean play Dig, that was made in 1949, and I heard that. Wow. My sisters started to play the record. What is that? Let me hear the rest of it.
I had the first album that I bought was Byrd at St. Nick's.
Wow.
And it was an album where somebody was taping them at his gigs, and it was,
Yeah.
the fidelity was low and everything. But that's how I thought jazz was supposed to. But I would put that album on, and Byrd, he playing. I didn't know what time it was, and just the passion in his voice. It was like a voice that cried in the wilderness. And Byrd had something, and I could feel that as a kid. And you know, I was just blown me away. I can't understand why people can't hear.
Right. I know what you mean.
But yeah, that one album, man. And then I heard Parker's Move. Blown away. So we're gonna talk about education and how we can get these young people
when I was
acclimated to the
10
music.
years old, 1953, maybe I was 11, 54. My father, who worked in the post office from 1937 to 1967,
Okay.
and he worked the night shift, midnight to 8 in the morning. He said to my mother, meet me at the Apollo. And like the first show was like 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And we went to the Apollo. My father showed up there, and we heard this group, Max Roach and Clifford Brown.
Woo!
And all I could remember, beside the excitement of the music, was the microphone that would come up out of the floor.
Wow. Wow.
And that was a very, very rewarding experience.
You came up in a great time. You got to see Clifford Brown?
Yeah, and hear him.
Wow.
But I didn't know anything about it. I mean, I had been playing trumpet a couple of months.
Yeah.
You know, I just knew I couldn't do that, what he was doing.
Did you ever see Byrd?
No, I never
Never
saw
got to see
Byrd.
Byrd. But wow, Clifford Brown.
Wait a minute, I did. My father took me. That's right, I did see Byrd. My father took me to a concert. And I remember when I came home from school, he says, okay, we're going to go to a concert, but you have to take a nap now because the concert starts at midnight.
Wow.
And he took me, I think it was Carnegie Hall. And it was like a Jazz at the Philharmonic or something. And Charlie Parker was playing. So I heard him. But again, I was young. All I can remember was this man coming out in an orange suit.
Wow.
And I was very meticulous about my school clothes. I'd come home from school and take off my school clothes and put on my play clothes. And I recall that this orange suit, the pants you could see where it was hanging on a hanger, you know. But I do remember the excitement of the music.
Wow. Beautiful.
So that was the only time that I heard Charlie Parker.
Wow. Yeah, you came along in a. I mean, these are, you know, when you talking about Beethoven and this. I mean, it's like wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would you say had the greatest influence on you as a aspiring musician?
Oh, by far Donald Byrd. Because I studied with Donald Byrd when I was 14 and 15 years old. Okay. Donald lived about 6, 7, 8 blocks away from me. And I went to the concert at Town Hall of Thelonious Monk, and Donald Byrd played trumpet. And I said, damn, I love the way he plays, you know. So 1959, 14 years old. And a friend who was there says, you know, he lives close by us, man.
Wow.
I know him. I said, you do? He said, you want me to introduce you? I said, yeah. So he managed to call or get in contact with Donald, and he took me over to the house. And that's how I met Donald Byrd.
And Donald Byrd was, a lot of people don't know, Donald Byrd was an interesting kind of guy. He was I rehearsed with him, and we were going to do something with the Blackbirds. It didn't happen, but he would tell us, you know, I like to ask questions, but he was an pilot.
He was a pilot,
yeah,
he
and all that.
had a small plane.
And he was into W.E.B. Du Bois.
Yeah, he's into black history.
Yeah.
And black art.
Yeah.
And
So
he had a tremendous collection, which to this day I don't know what happened to his art collection.
Wow.
I would say from the standpoint of the artists that he had, the numerous Romeo Beardens, the Jacob Lawrences, numerous great black artists, I would say it was in the millions.
Wow. Yeah. So what was the impact that Donald Byrd had on you?
Well, I wanted to be a jazz musician so I could drive a fantastic car and have wonderful women around me.
Ain't nothing wrong with it.
So he would give me stuff to practice, and I'd go home and I'd practice my stuff on, that was Saturday. I'd practice my stuff on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday I'd practice his stuff.
Okay.
You know, and I go for my lesson, unprepared. So this one time he said, hey man, did you practice? yeah, I practiced. You know, he said, well, what did you practice? Well, I practiced that Clark stuff. He said, well, you can't play it. So how old are you? I said, I'm 14. When's your birthday? I said, December 9. He said, December 9? That's my birthday, too.
And that's my brother's birthday, by the way.
Wow. So I said, wow. He said, I'm 11 years older than you. And you know what? One of these days we gonna be up for the same gig, and I'm gonna use those 11 years to make sure I get the gig and you don't.
Wow.
I went home and practiced my butt off.
Wow, what a
I
story.
practiced my butt off from that day on.
Wow.
And Donald was a dear friend right up until the time that he died.
Yeah, beautiful.
And we shared this birthday with numerous other people. Red Fox.
Wow.
The great African-American photographer, Roy D. Carava. Donald Byrd.
Wow.
And now your brother.
Yeah. He gonna like that. Wow. Who was Henry Bryant?
Henry Bryant is an American composer of European classical music that I managed to study with. on a one-to-one basis, and then we put together a class of about 6 people. Some of the people were trombonist, composer Tom McIntosh, tenor saxophonist, composer Benny Golson.
Ooh.
And there were other people in this class. And we studied with Bryant.
Wow.
And I just had a conversation with Benny Golson two weeks ago. And we talked about Henry Bryant and that class.
Wow. Did he, now, because you've done a lot of things, writing and
Yeah.
so that you attribute a lot of that to
Well,
him?
yeah, he opened up some doors for me to understand and study. And he opened up doors also about business. Because, and this is one of the things that Benny remembered.
Yeah.
Because he commented on this, that Alex North, the great composer of films, didn't write the music for Cleopatra. Henry Bryant did.
Wow.
He ghosted it.
Yeah.
For
wow.
him.
Wow.
Or some of it, you know. So he thought that was
Did you
a lesson about
yeah. Did you know
business.
Quincy Jones?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. 'Cause-
I knew Quincy from being a professional musician, and you know,
yeah.
I had been on things with Quincy. Quincy put together something. It was a tribute to Miles, and this was before all of the other tributes that he had done for Miles, and he chose me to play Miles's parts.
Oh wow.
You know, in the big band. So it was like Porgy and Bess.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Beautiful. Now, for what was your practice regimen like?
Well,
Because trumpet is not no easy instrument.
yeah, that's right. After high school, I learned more from June to September than I learned in the 3 years I was at the High School of Music and Art.
Wow.
Okay? I was transcribing Miles, Clifford Brown, Kenny Dorham, transcribing all of this stuff and writing it out. When it came time to, like, September, my mother said to me, "You gotta have to go out and get a job, boy." I said, "Get a job?" He said, "Yeah, you have to become responsible because you're gonna have a family someday." I said, "Well, it's like I have a job, Mom. I start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm practicing, and by the time I end, it's 4 or 5 o'clock every day. And that's even when I go out to Birdland down on 52nd Street and Broadway and come back home and get into bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was still up at 9 practicing.
Wow.
So I had a routine of stuff to practice, and I was very diligent about
Was there a point where your mom had to accept, okay, this is what he go, that she just came around and said,
You know, she sent me out with the New York Times to go down and find a job.
and I listened to an interview. You said was that the only job you've ever had other than music?
Only job I ever had outside of music.
Wow.
She worked in a hospital, Lincoln Hospital, and she got me this job at Lincoln Hospital. I was called the stationery clerk. I ordered all paper supplies for the hospital, birth certificates, death certificates, all the forms that doctors would write on, okay? I worked hard 2 weeks out of the month. 1 week getting in the requisitions, what to order. I ordered that stuff. Then when it came to put it in my cabinet so I could give it to the people who needed it, okay? And the other 2 weeks, I locked my door from the inside and I practiced with my mute. And I kept that job for about a year and 2 months or something like that. I mean, my salary was like $99 every 2 weeks, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I put that money away because I really wanted to go to college, Juilliard School of Music, and my parents didn't have the money. At that time, Juilliard cost $900 a year. Okay, that's what the tuition was.
Yeah. Wow.
So I kept that job and I practiced. I was practicing. I wasn't even taking any gigs. I would have people call me for gigs, and the only kind of gigs I was taking was the Haitian dance, the, rhythm and blues dance and stuff like that.
Wow.
But, they were calling me for gigs down at Monday night at Birdland,
Wow.
And this kind of stuff. The people who had heard me, like I had said, by the time I met Kenny Dorham, I knew Kenny and Kenny knew me because I had interacted with all of these people.
So how old were you, around this time?
I was 16. I was in a band called the Newport Youth Band. My junior year in high school.
Okay.
The Newport Youth Band was put together by George Wein and the educator Marshall Brown. It was funded by the Newport Jazz Festival, and we played in Newport Jazz Festival.
Okay.
And we sometimes would have to stay out of school on a Friday or a Monday because we had concerts to play. We'd play these dances and some of the people who were in that band at that time went on to be rather well known.
Wow.
Our drummer, Larry Rosen, started a record company. Michael Benny is a pianist who is a very wonderful arranger. The bassist is Eddie Gomez, who's around.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of people who went on to deal with this music.
Yeah. Wow.
One of the people lives here outside of Washington in Maryland, and he's going to come to the performance this evening
Wow.
at Blues Alley, the performance that I'm doing with Thad Wilson,
Really?
this tribute to Duke Ellington and Horace Silver.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful. What's his name?
Joe Orange.
Okay.
He's no longer plays, but
he's gonna come out. Check you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We grew up together.
Yeah.
And he was in the Newport Youth Band from the Bronx.
I want to talk about the New York jazz scene. New York has always been like the place where the cats say we got to get to New York from all over the world.
It was the center of music.
Yeah, and so you came up, and it always changes, I guess, over generation. But you came up. Well, let me just ask you, what was the scene like back when you were coming up, like the New York scene?
Well, there were many jazz clubs, and people would go to jazz clubs. There were many of the very, very highly skilled musicians who were old enough to be my father, my grandfather in many cases, the J.C. Higginbottoms, trombonists, the Buster Baileys, the clarinetists, those people were playing in many of these clubs. So you were always able to hear great music, even though you weren't able to go inside the club because you were too young.
Wow.
Like we would stand outside, this person, Joe Orange, would stand outside the Metropole at 48th Street and 7th Avenue when his uncle, J.C. Higginbottom, was playing there.
Wow.
And when they would come off the stage, J.C., all of the musicians had to walk through the audience to go down to the band room right by the entrance door. So as soon as Joe would see his uncle, hey, Uncle J.C., and he would take us in downstairs to the dressing room.
Wow.
Where I would meet people like Charlie Shavers, Roy Eldridge,
Wow.
you know. And, you know, yeah, my name is James Owens, and I play trumpet, you know. And, you know, Roy Eldridge remembers that. Red Allen remembered that at some point.
Did you go check out the jam sessions?
We had our own jam sessions. So I don't know what jam sessions other than our own. We would rent various, and when I say rent, just get the auditorium in various schools. So we had a school for Monday, and there was another school for Wednesday or Thursday or Friday. And because the schools had pianos, the auditorium. So then we would gather and have jam sessions. And that's how we learned songs. Night in Tunisia.
Wow.
Erisian, you know.
Wow.
Songs like that.
Was there enough work for everybody at that round?
It seemed like there was, because there were lots of clubs.
Yeah.
Like in the Bronx, there was this one club, Club 845. Club 845 was a place that Miles Davis played. Charlie Parker played there. A lot of the musicians, like Monk and Elmo Hope, who frequented the Bronx, would play there. And it was a place that lots of people would go.
Wow. So when you became of that age where you were like in the mix, like you were playing in New York, like who were some of your contemporaries?
Well, Woody Shaw was a year younger than me, and I do remember a jam session that we had up at the Juilliard School of Music. And this, and we had it there because this composer, his name was Hank Johnson, went to Juilliard, so he was able to get rooms and whatnot at Juilliard. And we had this jam session, and this trumpet player came, and he had on a big suit, you know, a big jacket, you know, much too big for him. But that's what I mean by big. And man, I don't know what we played. I can't remember what we played, but something like one of the songs we were working on, Erisian or something. And he took out his horn and played and gassed the shit out of all of us.
Wow.
And man, the stuff that he was playing, he had Fats Navarro down.
Really?
Yes. That's where Woody came from.
This was Woody?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Woody Shaw just wiped out all of the people.
Really?
With the stuff that he was playing at that young age.
Wow. Now, there's some cats I want to ask you about. Okay, Lee Morgan. What was? Did you have any?
I used to go to see Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard at Birdland.
Okay.
Because not only did they work with Art Blakey, so whenever Art Blakey came, I would go.
Well, those guys, was Lee Morgan a little older?
The three of them. Booker Little, Lee Morgan, Freddie Hubbard, all were born in 1938.
Wow.
Same age.
Wow.
Okay? And Slide Hampton, that was one of the first people that I worked with.
So you had to find your way through all that.
Yeah. But you know, like they were 5 years older than me, and 5 years is a big difference. When they were 20 and I was 15, you know, they had been through all of this stuff since they were 15.
Yeah. Wow.
What was happening, I would go to a place like Birdland. They had a place where the young people could sit and not order drinks.
Okay.
Not the peanut gallery.
Gotcha.
But it was a special table that the only drinks you could order was Coca-Cola, orange soda, whatever.
Yeah.
And we had to pay, I don't remember how much it was, but after a while, the manager of the club told Pee Wee Marquette, the manager's name was Johnny Gary, who later worked for years with Jazzmobile and Billy Taylor.
Wow.
Okay? Johnny Gary told Pee Wee Marquette, all right, when the kid comes, don't charge him any, So I didn't have to pay the $1.25 admission
Wow.
to Birdland.
Wow.
And that was wonderful because I'd come and I'd see Pee Wee at the door and go ahead,
Really?
come in.
He's one of the characters in the jazz history that,
Many people don't know very much about it.
yeah.
I'll never forget when, I don't want to use the exact words, but there was a situation with Philly Joe Jones and Pee Wee Marquette. And this happened while I was there at the club. And I was always there with musician friends, some of them older than me. What we would do is we would sit in the seats that they would sit us in. And after a while, we'd get up and walk past the bar to where the bathrooms were, and then walk back out in front of the bar and where we could sit and look down over the peanut gallery and be closer to the musicians, And this particular day, there was some altercation between Philly Joe Jones and Pee Wee Marquette.
Wow.
And all he heard was a bunch of loud discussions, and then all of a sudden, you heard Pee Wee's voice say, "Put me down! Put me down! Put me down!"
Oh, that's wow, that's funny.
Boy,
Oh man, that's
so
funny.
I do remember that. And I used to make Johnny Gary laugh at all of the things that I remember, like the time that, and Johnny was strong, muscular, strong, not big.
Yeah.
The time that this guy was drunk, and Johnny was behind the bar. He was a bartender at that time. And this guy was really drunk and nasty. And Johnny Gary reached over the bar, grabbed him in his neck, and pulled him over the bar,
Wow.
behind the bar,
Wow.
and was beating the shit out of him.
Wow. Yeah,
Johnny was,
Yeah.
he served as a bouncer at Birdland, and
It's
bartender,
yeah.
and then manager.
Yeah, it's characters in this music, ain't it?
Yes, that's right. There are lots of characters in this music. And unfortunately, a lot of the guys who are around now don't know about them because they were before them. And the ones, like, I'm 79. This is my 80th year. I'll be 80 December 9.
Okay.
There are very few of us left.
Yeah.
And the ones who are left, some of them may remember people like that. Trombonist Dick Griffin, we talk about stuff like that.
Wow.
Saxophonist Billy Harper, we talk about stuff like that. Billy just turned 80.
Wow. Did you know this cat named C Sharp?
Sure, C Sharp was a very, very good friend.
Yeah.
And his wife, China.
Okay. I remember meeting him in high school, man. He came to Philly, and I was just, I was into Byrd, so so I was really impressed with him. I know he passed on, but
Yeah.
Now, what about
His song was Tune Up. He'd
Okay.
jump up on the stage and play Tune Up all the time. And he played good.
No
He
doubt.
played real good.
Yeah.
I once did a Jazzmobile concert, and I used C Sharp.
Really?
Clarence Sharp.
Yeah, Clarence Shaw. Yeah. Beautiful.
On the concert. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. What about Cannonball Adderley?
Well.
Did you know Cannon?
Yeah. I knew Cannonball not only from the time that I sat in with Miles at the age of 15,
Wow.
but when I would see him after, we would always talk because he remembered that,
Oh, wow.
you know.
So you got to play with sitting with Miles?
My father took me to Small's Paradise in Harlem, and they were on a break. So he's at the bar, and I walked. At that time, the bandstand was in the center of Small's Paradise. There was a bigger room in the back. Well, Miles was set up in the center, the whole band. And so I walked over to where his horn was. They were on a break. His horn was in the piano. And like I said, I had never seen a blue trumpet. His trumpet was tinted blue.
Yeah.
Now, I walked over and I had my hands behind my back because I didn't want him to think that I was going to touch his horn or anything, you know, because I heard he was such a nasty person.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the horn and somebody slides down at the piano and starts to play some chords and looks up at me and says, "You play trumpet, kid?" with his voice like that. And I said, "Yeah." He played a couple of chords. He said, "Here, play me a tune."
Wow. He gave you his horn?
Yeah, he reached in and
Wow.
so I went to take the mouthpiece. I said, "Take the mouthpiece off." He said, "You can play without a mouthpiece?" I said, "No, I got my own."
Yeah.
I put my mouthpiece in, and I played Walking. Ba ba da da boo be doo doo. And by that time, the musicians are coming back on the stage. And the only one who wasn't on the stage was Bill Evans. And Bill came up, you know, and Miles said, "You hear this kid play?" And Bill said, "No." He said, "Here, play again." So I started to play Walking again, and Cannonball, John Coltrane,
Wow.
Paul Chambers, and Jimmy Cobb joined in.
While you were playing?
Yeah,
Wow.
and played Walking with me.
Were you nervous?
I don't remember being nervous, but
Yeah. Wow.
So, and you know, this was the highlight of the night for my father. He's there with a few friends and saying, "Yeah, that's my son." You know? Now, my father was always on my case, in my case, you know.
Yeah.
for
So
me.
your dad was really
gung ho for
Yeah. Wow. Now let me ask you, how'd you feel? I mean, you've many of these great musicians. So you had to go through a lot of when they passed on, and you know the shock of like, okay, Lee Morgan died, Train died, Cannonball.
I was with Lee Morgan on Sunday, okay? And he was at the top of the gate, the village gate. And he said, he came over and we talked. And he said, "Hey, man, I'm going to be at Slugs starting Tuesday. Come down, man, bring your horn and play some." So, you know, I said, "Yeah." You know, it's 1972. I'm 29 years old. I'm going to, and I've been around. I mean, Lee has played. Heard me play. We have played together at that point. So I was teaching a course on Sunday morning at Muse out in Brooklyn, teaching young trumpet players. So I had decided to go down Friday night. And Friday something came up and I didn't go. And then I was going to go down Saturday night. And I said, "Oh, no, I'll go down the last night because I have to teach this course at 11 o'clock out in Brooklyn." I live in 19th Street and Park Avenue in Manhattan. So it was a trip out to Brooklyn, you know. So I didn't go Saturday night. And my telephone rang about 3 or 4 in the morning. What the hell is that? Telephone never rings. This is before the days of telephone answering machines. So it just rang and rang. So finally, I got up, my wife is wondering what is happening, you know. So I got up and answered the phone. It was Paul West, the bass player. And Paul said to me, Jimmy, Helen just shot Lee, and he's dead.
Wow. You knew his wife? I mean,
Yeah.
You knew her too? Okay.
I knew her.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, she was always around, and she was the best thing that happened for him during his bad days of drug abuse. She got him off of drugs.
Yeah. Wow.
And when Paul told me that, I cried, you know.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
Yeah.
And I waited till about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock the next day, and I called Dizzy. And I told Dizzy, he was home, and I told Dizzy that Lee had been shot and killed the night before.
Wow.
That was very heavy.
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody else had called him, you know, if Paul had called him,
Wow.
you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, people like that. But you see, at the same time, Antonio, you need to know that I was a young trumpet player. Unlike the other young trumpet players and those who were 5 years older than me, those three, Booker, Lee, and Freddie, that was friendly with the older musicians. I guess this is the time that I was with my friend Joe Orange, going to places like the Metropole. So that's where I knew Charlie Shavers, Roy Eldridge,
Wow.
Red Allen. Those guys didn't follow those
Yeah.
musicians,
Yeah.
you know. So that was very, very important to me, and you know,
Yeah.
knowing them and meeting them and respecting them. One of my dear friends is Jonah Jones. He died at 92
Wow.
in 2000.
Wow. You also knew Paul Robeson, right?
No, I really didn't know Paul Robeson. I met Paul Robeson.
You met him. Okay. All right.
I met Paul Robeson. There was a very special evening that up at Yale University that the French horn player, bass player, Willie Ruff put together. It was a tribute that Duke Ellington had. And Duke named 30 musicians that should be honored and respected. Paul Robeson was one of the people.
Wow.
Okay? Dizzy Gillespie. Roy Eldridge. And for each group of instrumental lists, they had a young person come and play a tribute for them.
Wow.
And for the trumpet players, Willie Ruff had called me to play.
Wow.
This was 1972. And I played Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. And that's always a very special song for me.
Yeah. Wow.
I play that at many of my friends' funerals. You know, in tribute to them.
Yeah.
And I got a chance to sit there and be there with all of these excellent people. And Willie Ruff talks about it in his book. It's, you know, it's very good. I need to read that to see who else was there.
Yeah.
I've forgotten now.
All right. Well, we're moving right along.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on some of your career highlights. I mean, I looked at your resume. I said, "Wow." I mean, it's. How'd you find your way? Like, was it one thing where you did you feel like it was already written and you just walked through, or divine providence?
I don't know if it was that, but you know, I practiced, I studied, And I became friends with a lot of the great musicians that had come on before me, and they heard that I could play. You know, so Slide Hampton, you know, was a real special person. I worked with his band. I rehearsed with his band before they were working. And when I quit my job at Lincoln Hospital, my boss, who was very, very sympathetic to me, said, "So what are you going to do now? Retire at the age of 18? I said, "Well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to make more money in one night than I made in 2 weeks here." Like I said, my salary was like $99 every 2 weeks, or something like that. And Slide called me to do a concert down in Greensboro, North Carolina. We drove down there. We played the concert. We got back in the station wagon and drove back to New York. And I made $300 for that night.
There it is.
So, I mean, like, that was the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I had been making money here, $25, this dance, you know, maybe $50, you know, playing with some Latin band that I was reading the music, because I could always read the music.
Okay.
You see?
And
that was one of the things that was important for my education out of the Newport Youth Band. I had to really learn how to read music. I did learn how to read music.
And you went on to college and graduated.
Well,
and all that.
college had nothing to do with any of that.
Okay.
You know. I say that because I went to college late.
Okay.
1975.
Gotcha.
You know, or 72 to 75. And I was in a special program at the University of Massachusetts, which was like the first university without walls. That gave me credit for my years of experience.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay? Not only experience at playing the trumpet, but experience at dealing with education, dealing with business, because Donald laid out the business stuff for me. Taught me about the business.
Gotcha.
Taught me about G.G. Grice, the great alto saxophonist, who taught all of the musicians about the music business. Cannonball Adderley.
He got blackballed too, didn't he?
Oh, yes. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I did a concert in the Bronx at a school, and G.D. Grice was there.
Wow.
And Charlie Persip was working with me. And I went over to Charlie Persip as we were on the stage. I said, "Charlie, man, you see that guy back over there? Who's that?" And Charlie looked. He said, "Man, that looked like G.G. Grice."
Wow.
And it was G.G. Grice.
Wow.
He had changed his name to his Arabic name, you know.
Yeah.
And we talked to him and whatnot. Well, Donald Byrd had taught me all of this about the business of music, about copyright, about owning my publishing company, about owning my music. And that was very, very special.
Wow. Are there any particular highlights when you look at your career that really stand out for you performing as a performer?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt that night that I played for Duke Ellington. Now, I had worked with Duke in 1968. This is 1972 up at Yale University. So that was very special.
Yeah.
I, as a composer, arranger, I arranged Duke Ellington's song Come Sunday for a full orchestra, 90 musicians.
Wow.
And recorded it in Holland.
Wow.
Okay? The day before Duke died.
Wow.
And, you know, I wish him happy birthday. And I knew Duke had been ill, but, you know, I wasn't expecting him to die.
Wow.
So that was one day before Duke died.
What is it like to hear your arrangement or your like from?
Now that was an experience. It
Yeah.
was 9:00 in the morning, and man, when they played that first stuff, I said, "Oh shit! I wrote that."
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
I listened to that. It's one of my favorite
Wow.
things today. I've never released that
Yeah.
because it was only for
Gotcha.
Dutch radio. And since then, I have recorded about 15 or 20 of my compositions for
Wow.
full orchestra.
So you've walked into like a movie theater and heard your music?
Yeah, almost like that.
What? That's crazy. That's wow. That's an honor to me.
Well, you know,
yeah.
it's more exciting now after the fact when I go to a concert with the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra and they're playing my music for
Yeah.
me and my quartet to play
Yeah,
along with.
wow.
And I did a concert like that, and we took the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra maybe 6, 7, 8 months after the riot, took the whole orchestra into Attica Prison to play a concert,
Wow.
and it was great, you know. I don't know how those guys in the prison could eat that food. They had a big vat of macaroni and cheese. It was about this big and that deep,
Wow.
and it had no taste. It had no
Wow.
taste. To this day, I can't.
See how? Yeah. Wow.
And that was an interesting concert because there was a inmate who played tenor saxophone. His name was Spider Martin. And Spider had written something for orchestra for the Rochester Philharmonic. He had never written anything for orchestra in his life. And the piece was really exciting.
Wow.
He arranged one of his things.
Yeah.
Now, he lived in Buffalo. He stayed incarcerated for things like passing bad checks,
Gotcha. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
robbery of a loaf of bread or
Wow.
bottle of Coca-Cola,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff. Nothing violent.
Wow.
And he spent a lot of time in
Yeah.
prison. And after he got out, we did some concerts together.
Oh wow.
He invited me up there.
So I wanted to ask you, to get your perspective on how does some musicians like yourself have all these opportunities and get to do, and there's some musicians that might be good players or maybe they don't have those type of experience. I mean, is there something that the formula that you had that or because everybody
When
don't
I
get to
was
do with the
studying-
Philharmonic.
When I
and
was studying with Donald Byrd said, "You got 10 fingers, okay? To be a successful musician, each finger should be involved with some part of what you can do, and you will never go for want of work."
Oh, beautiful. Great advice.
I've passed that on to many of my students.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
And I believe that is really true. And as the music industry at one point blossomed out where all of this stuff was happening, and if you were the kind of person that I was, that Sagittarius people are, you're a go-getter.
No doubt.
So I would go after that. I would become friendly with those people who are in charge of radio orchestras in Europe.
Gotcha.
And, you know, and in Holland, in Germany, in Italy. And when they came to the United States, we would have dinner and we would see each other and whatnot.
So relationships.
Relationships, right.
Beautiful. Wow.
And because I could take care of business, you know, I was not like a lot of other people that, okay, so I'm writing music for symphony orchestra. and the concert is there and I don't have the music or I have half of it written. No.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, we almost to the end. I wanted to talk about the state of jazz.
Okay.
My first question is jazz a meritocracy? Does the cream always rise to the top?
Well, to be truthful, we know for a fact historically that is not the case. Okay? Benny Goodman was not the king of swing. There were other players that could play and speak just as well as Benny Goodman, or better.
No doubt.
And Paul Whiteman was not the king of jazz. How could anybody be called the king of jazz over Louis Armstrong? Okay?
Yeah.
So we know for a fact the cream doesn't always get a chance to rise to the top.
No doubt.
And there are trumpet players that rose to the top that had nothing to do with the grandeur of a Dizzy Gillespie, of a Clifford Brown, of a Fats Navarro.
Yeah. Do you think there's always been association with drug usage in jazz? Do you think that some musicians may have sabotaged their forward momentum in the music?
Oh, they most definitely did.
Yeah.
They most definitely did when they got hung up with substance abuse. And it wasn't always drugs. I mean, it was alcohol, substance abuse problems. But during the 40s, the latter 40s into the 50s, there was much more narcotic use. I remember Jimmy Heath telling me a story of how somebody came in Cleveland, a lady, and saw them snorting cocaine, the musicians. And she said, well, what are you doing with that? That ain't gonna get you high. You wanna get high? I'll show you how to get high. And 5 guys in Dizzy Gillespie's band got strung out that night.
Wow.
On shooting heroin.
Wow.
She showed them how to shoot up.
Wow.
And one of those people still was living 4 years ago.
Really? Wow.
And I mean, Jimmy Heath was one of those people who got strung out. So
really?
Jimmy just died, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I got to see Jimmy when I was, again, in high school. Yeah, one of the greats. Wow. Now, as an elder, you have any critiques of the younger musicians?
Well, the first critique I have is that, first of all, the scene has changed to such an extent that the places where we learned how to play this music and the people who were around at that time to guide us in playing this music no longer exist. So consequently, it becomes harder to master the craft of communication to the audience when those places are not around.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that has affected a lot of the players that have come up. And somewhere along the line, people were started to being taught, if you can play 4,000 notes in 12 measures, you're great. And that's what players started to do.
Yeah. Wow.
Guys who had gone to college, graduated from college, went back into college to be head of jazz departments, and never had a chance to have to stand on a stage and thrill an audience with what they did.
Yeah.
And many times they were teaching these people the wrong shit.
Yeah. No doubt. I was going to ask you, is there a particular way jazz should be taught?
There's no particular way jazz should be taught. There are ways that jazz is taught that is beneficial
Gotcha.
for helping people. I'll just give you one example. One of the things that I make my students do, knowing that somebody along the line is saying technique, 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 and next thing you know, they're playing 5,000 notes. So I get my student to tell me 3 notes. Give me any 3 notes.
E, A, C.
E, A, C. Okay, so think about how you want that to sound. E, A, C. Now I want you to play a ballad. I want you to construct a ballad with only those 3 notes. No octaves. Only those 3 notes. You go home and do that. You can play any one of those notes as many times as you want to.
Wow.
Different combinations of rhythm.
Yeah.
Okay? That's making you deal with your creativity, not your technique.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So when you can control that limited stuff, you're making your creativity really work for you.
Yeah. And that's what those cats like Charlie Parker, like when you hear like Parker's Mood, he's playing the blues, but it's really like he's telling a story.
He is telling a story.
It's not like he's trying to. It's like, and it's to the point that a cat can put lyrics to his solo, like there I go there.
James Moody.
James Moody. That was to Moody's Mood for Love.
Right.
I'm in the Mood for Love. That was his solo, and they played it so lyrical that they can actually write songs to this stuff.
Yeah, but that's just the thing about a great solo, a melodic solo. And then someone can come along who is skillful at words, like King Pleasure did, to put words to Moody's solo.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. Yeah, and it's like telling a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we getting there. Oh yeah, but I want to know why do you think the African American community as a whole does not embrace jazz as it should? I mean,
Well,
even like on the NAACP Image Awards, you don't hear no jazz. And,
Yeah.
I mean, what happened?
that bothers me, and it has always bothered me, especially when the people who are supposedly knowledgeable and they're talking about black music, they don't include black music, all of it,
Yeah.
or a little bit of it.
Yeah.
It's only
Yeah.
Jay-Z,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Beyonce,
Yeah, no doubt.
Or Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that exists. I think part of it was during the 40s when people would dance to all kinds of music. Charlie Parker was playing his great stuff,
Yeah.
and people were dancing to it. They were dealing with their creativity. Now, as time went on and the beat got more pronounced, a lot of those people shied away from dancing to the music because it wasn't a part of their life in the kind of music that they were dancing to. And I think we lost a lot of audience when people stopped dancing and had to listen because they were not skillful at listening. And when I say skillful, I don't mean that's a G minor 7 going to a C7. I'm talking about skillful and, wow, listen to that excitement. Listen to that melancholy melody.
Aesthetic value.
Aesthetic value,
yeah.
okay? And I think that happened. Then when radio that had more jazz on it started to cut back on the amount of jazz and to incorporate other types of music when it was called the jazz station.
Yeah.
When the jazz festival was called the Jazz Festival, and had very few jazz artists.
Ain't that something?
Music on the radio, a little bit of jazz. That's what made people.
Yeah. Now, this is why I think maybe when integration happened, that we gave up a lot of our cultural institutions, the Black Musicians Union, Negro Leagues, and it's like and maybe some of the professionals moved out of the community and wasn't there to be that community leader and kind of left a void. Maybe hip hop came out of that void and that sort of thing.
There were not enough Bootsy Barnes.
Yeah. No doubt. So we're gonna keep working. We're gonna keep working with and trying to, pass this thing on because I think that we have to build a new audience. Because and we got to get to particularly young people in the underprivileged communities because I don't think they get enough exposure. Now with jazz, you got to go out to this. You got to go outside. And it's like we got to get something to come in the hood.
Yeah.
And get something. And I don't see enough of that.
Well, like we don't have the radio. The radio that we have is pronounced towards one thing, selling a certain type of beat music.
Yeah.
And only that.
Yeah, no doubt.
And consequently, that has turned off a lot of people from listening to jazz, where you have to use more than your excitement of moving your feet.
Yeah.
But you have to use your mind and your heart, your brain to really check it out. And we find that when jazz artists do something that has that kind of a beat, many people join in.
Yeah. No doubt.
That's why we chose Horace Silver and Duke Ellington for our little tribute this evening at Blues Alley.
Yeah.
We chose them because they have each composed a wide variety of music that treats the mind, the heart, the feet, the butt. Always.
Yep. Now, you've known for being a music business person. Now, you were with A&M Records?
I was with Horizon, a part of A&M. Right.
Okay, Horizon. Okay. Now, it was a period where a lot of musicians was going into the funk fusion. I know Freddie, and they were going, and yourself. Was that early '70s? Was it Miles? They were going into that. Donald Byrd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was about any musician who started to feel the African American heritage is ours. And the way I felt, it is mine, part of my history. And if I feel competent and I like that particular aspects of the music, then I should be able to express myself with it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I do not separate the fact that it's fusion. It's It's just good
Good music.
music.
No doubt. I love it. Yeah, Chuck Mangione was also on. Was he on A&M?
He was on A&M.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to tell you that I was told by people who were in charge of promotion for A&M when Herb Albert came out, who was a trumpet player, is a trumpet player, owns a trumpet. I mean, compared to Dizzy and Clifford
I
Brown
understand.
and others. When Chuck Mangione, Herb Albert, and Hugh Masekela were on the label, this promotion person was, hey, listen, don't push this Jimmy Owens stuff. We have enough trumpet players.
Wow.
And my stuff was selling very well. Didn't have the push of the record company. And the person I'm talking about was Dizzy's cousin. He was in charge of promotion, some part of promotion for A&M Records, Boo Frazier.
Wow.
Well, Boo used to tell me when he'd walk into radio stations to push the product, many times he was told, hey man, look, not that Herb Albert, Hugh Masekela again. Please, no.
Wow.
It's not that they said Jimmy Owens in particular, but
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that such is the business of music, right?
someone told me that I have been ostracized from the standpoint of the music industry because I talk too much about the business to the musicians.
Gotcha.
That you shouldn't be giving your music to all of these publishing companies that are owned by the record companies.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
you should fight that and not have that in your contract
Yeah.
because your grandchildren and great-grandchildren should be able to live off of your royalties like George Gershwin's
No doubt.
children.
No doubt. Let's talk about jazz and justice movement. What is the jazz and justice movement?
Well, it's a part of the American Federation of Musicians, specifically Local 802 in New York, attacking the problems that jazz musicians have. And the reason that they were attacking these problems was because of the Jazz Advisory Committee some of us put together with Bob Cranshaw, Jimmy Owens, numerous other musicians. Benny Powell was one of those people. Numerous other musicians who said, let's make things better. First off, let's get more of jazz musicians health insurance of some type so we don't have to pay benefits after someone gets sick or dies to bury them. Or what happens to a musician when they get into their older age and they're not working?
Yeah.
They've worked in jazz clubs. They've done concerts. But they have no pension.
Yeah.
There's no pension for them.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that the pension that does exist from the American Federation from 1959, which was late, starts to affect more jazz artists. It affected studio artists, those musicians who worked on films in California those musicians who worked on Broadway and Broadway shows, those musicians who worked in symphony orchestras, how come it doesn't affect those musicians who are J-A-Z-Z musicians?
No doubt.
And it still is that way.
Wow.
The major clubs in New York, the major jazz clubs anywhere in the United States do not pay into the American Federation of Musicians Pension Fund.
Wow.
Dizzy Gillespie's pension was under $250 a year
Wow.
because he worked in lots of places, clubs, in every state, and none of those places paid into a pension fund. Yeah, they paid him his salary, but they didn't pay into a pension fund.
Gotcha.
They weren't made to, like they were made to do it for business. The bus driver, the person who drives the Amtrak train, they're all going to get a pension.
No doubt.
The garbage worker who collects the garbage from the streets, they're all going to get a pension. We were not able to budge with the clubs.
Wow.
So no clubs, we started in New York, no clubs pay into the pension fund
Wow.
for any musicians who are working there.
Wow.
So that's what Justice for Jazz Artists, that was part of it, was about.
What about the Jazz Emergency Fund?
Well, we started the Jazz Foundation of America in 1989. And the Jazz Musician Emergency Fund is a major program to help jazz artists who are in need. The
Gotcha.
musician who is working and all of a sudden gets sick and can't work for some period of time.
Yes, a drummer, my man, Victor Lewis, I think.
Victor Lewis
going through
is
something
just
right now.
having
Yeah.
a problem right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We've come to their aid. We've paid mortgages and rents and telephone bills, things like that.
Yeah.
We have an affiliation with the hospital that Dizzy Gillespie was in Englewood, New Jersey, where they have provided millions of dollars of health coverage
Wow.
since 1990,
Beautiful.
when I put together something called 100 Musicians for Jazz.
Wow. Was that the Black Artist Collective? Was that something different?
That's something different.
Okay. What's the Black Artist
The Collective Black Artists was an organization that Reggie Workman and a number of other musicians, but me and Reggie were the founders, and we kept it going for many, many years to help give jazz artists work.
Beautiful.
We did 6 concerts each year at Town Hall.
Wow.
With the CBA ensemble, the Collective Black Artists Ensemble, which I put together, and I was the musical director for many, many years. Then I stepped down and let other people be the musical directors.
Cool.
Okay? We presented concerts at Town Hall in New York City. Like I said, 6 concerts a year that were funded, where we presented great jazz artists who had never or very seldom ever been heard with playing with a big band.
Wow.
Max Roach, Art Blakey, Ron Carter, Archie Shepp. The list goes on and on
Yeah. Yeah.
of presenting these artists with this great music and arrangements made by a variety of people.
Beautiful.
So that's the Collective Black Artists, and it lasted from 1969 to about 1977.
Okay.
And then just, I got too busy to do it. Reggie got too busy to do it
Yeah.
on the hands-on way that we were doing it. And there weren't a number of people to step up to keep it happening.
Gotcha. Wow. I have three more questions, three final questions. You did an article in 2010 for the Jazz Times entitled "Remembering Jamil Nasser." Can you share with us some of those memories of Mr. Jamil Nasser?
Yeah, well, Jamil was one of the people who was involved with Justice for Jazz Artists campaign, the Jazz Musician Emergency Fund, and the organization that we put together to help jazz artists.
Beautiful.
You know,
Wow.
not only was he a fantastic jazz bass player, but he was a thinker. And we came together because we got tired, each of us, of having to put together a benefit concert to either bury a jazz artist, to pay a hospital bill. I remember the Collective Black Artists raised, I don't know how many pints of blood. Say we raised 300 pints of blood, something like that, for Bobby Timmons
Wow.
from
Philly.
the blood bank.
Yeah. Wow.
And when it came time to give blood for Bobby Timmons, they just credited us with half of that amount
Wow.
because of what? They got some amount. It was close to 250 to 300 pints of blood. And we put out the word, Bobby Timmons needs this to save his life. And jazz followers came and gave blood.
Wow.
All over. And it had to then be shipped and sent to one place. So they just credited us with half.
Wow. Yeah, the struggle continues.
That struggle continues.
Yeah. So,
And that's what makes me want to always play the blues.
now it's a statement. I wrote down this statement that you said jazz is the heartbeat of the world.
That's right.
That's your statement.
That's my statement.
Yeah.
Because I've traveled all over the world and I've seen it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've seen me playing in Cairo, Egypt, and people getting up and dancing to the blues.
Wow. Yeah.
Just the other night in a club in Brooklyn, Sister's Place.
Wow.
Danny Mixon, piano, great pianist. Stanley Banks, bass, working with George Benson. Steve Johns, drums, myself.
Wow.
We put
Turn it
down
up.
some blues
Yes, sir.
that these people just got up and started to dance. They were all middle-aged.
Wow.
Okay? They remembered
Yeah.
the feeling. Hey, let's move.
Yeah. That's what's going to save jazz. The
Yeah.
feeling. I believe that. Like, not the notes.
That's true. That's true.
So, what's next for Jimmy Owens? I know you're playing tonight, right?
Yeah.
At Blues Alley with Thad Wilson,
Yeah.
celebrating the music of
Duke Ellington
Duke Ellington,
and Horace Silver,
Horace Silver.
as well as some of our own music.
Okay, beautiful. And are you any recordings? And we didn't even get into your. I know you have an extensive.
Yeah.
You done recorded with everybody, and
Well, I'm not doing any recording right now. I'm thinking about having to do some. I'm in the process of thinking, and I'm going to start to put pen to paper, of writing a trumpet concerto for myself for my 80th birthday.
Beautiful.
For full orchestra.
Wow. Wow.
And I guess I will have to go to Europe to record it.
Wow.
Unless the New York Philharmonic or the Boston Symphony Orchestra or the Los Angeles Philharmonic
Wow.
decides to do more jazz.
Wow. But I meant to tell you that you have a group, Jimmy Owens Plus.
Right.
That's that you lead, right?
Yeah, that's my group, my quartet.
Okay. Are you still?
And-
y'all still?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I do stuff, it's Jimmy Owens Plus. Like last week
Yeah.
at Sister's Place, it's Jimmy Owens Plus. And the plus has always meant plus whatever.
Yeah.
Jimmy Owens Plus the Rochester Philharmonic.
Gotcha.
Jimmy Owens Plus the Brooklyn Philharmonic. Jimmy Owens Plus the Rod Rogers Dance Company.
Beautiful. Yes. I got it.
Plus something.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's just Jimmy Owens Plus you.
I love it. All right. Final question. And you can look right in the camera. Tell people, how can people, they want to learn about what you're doing, and how can they get in touch with you?
Oh, they can go to my site, jimmyowensjazz.com. Okay? And when I'm in performance, I'm usually in performance in some type of concert. So have your college contact jimmyowensjazz.com to invite us to your college to perform,
Beautiful.
to talk about this great music we call jazz.
Beautiful. Well, Mr. Owens, I just want to thank you. This has been an honor for me, for just taking your time and, the young buck, and, giving us some history and sharing your experiences and just understanding and knowledge. And I think we need to do more of this where we get to ask elders some questions and
You have to catch them before they disappear from here.
Yeah. And
Archie Shepp is coming to New York on the 8th of April to play at the Brooklyn Academy of Music.
Wow.
Now, Archie lives in Paris, and he has been having problems with arthritis, and he had 5 stents placed in his heart.
Wow.
Now, Archie is 85 years old.
Yeah. I got to see Archie back in he used to come to Philly. I got to see him in Philly when I was coming up. Yeah. Wow. Well, again, this is beautiful, and I think that we need to. We always got to honor our elders. Respect the elders. Got to get the young people to know how to respect the elders down there.
I had a wonderful conversation with Benny Golson about 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah.
Now, Benny Golson is 92 years old.
Wow.
Okay?
Yes.
He's not in very good shape
Really?
now. He was until he got COVID, and it was a bad COVID
Wow.
that put him on a walker.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but he played a concert at 92 years old, and it's on YouTube.
Wow,
And you can
really?
hear him play, and he
Yeah.
sounds wonderful.
Beautiful. Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
For joining us. Yeah, we appreciate you. This is an honor for me again. And there you have it, the great Mr. Jimmy Owens. This is a conversation in jazz. I'm Antonio Parker, and I'll see you on the next one.